thinking. Oh, there Listen, there are a lot of podcasts about the black church in the vein of Larry Reed and King Jives.
Yikes.
But if you're looking for a podcast about the black church that's thoughtful, informative, substantive, stimulating, then you need to subscribe to Black Church Chats. That's right. I need you to hit that subscribe button and then also hit the notification bell so that you'll know every time we go live. All right, on to the show.
Yo. Happy, what's today? Today's Tuesday. Happy Tuesday to you and to yours. I'm extra excited for a number of reasons. But first, let me shout out the Thinker's Bible. Follow Reverend Robert, the Thinker's Bible. Let me shout out Reverend Charles Nelson. Let me shout out Rick Barboa. Let me shout out my aunties who are here all the time. My auntie Melissa, my auntie Millicent. Let me shout out Melody's Child and Key, who says, you're in your office and we're on speaker right now? Ooh, you know, I'm loud by nature. Uh-oh, where did my guest go? Okay, all right. I have a guest backstage, and I think we're having some technical difficulties backstage, but hopefully she'll pop back in. Anyway, y'all, what's up? How y'all feeling? Happy Tuesday. Oh, okay. She popped back in. Okay. All right. Let me calm down. Listen, sometimes the energy drink will do it to you. What's up, everybody? Hope you're well. Hope you're having a wonderful Tuesday. Man, I'm excited about the conversation and the dialogue today. Y'all, we're gonna have a very substantive conversation, and I'm gonna set the stage for the conversation in just a moment. But first, let me say this. No, I am not going to address the situation where the pastor, the female pastor, rebuked the praise team leader on stage. I've had 3 people hit me up and ask me if I'm going to address that. No. How do you say no in Spanish? No. How do you say no? No. How do you say no in tongues? My Pentecostal folks. All right. No, I will not be addressing that issue. I no. Okay. So I love y'all, but I'm not. All right. Okay. I blast music all the time without good. Okay. So my loud voice is not going to be that much of a disturbance. All right. So from oppressor to overlord is what we're talking about today. I need you to subscribe. I need you to comment. I need you to share. This is going to be a very, very good conversation, a conversation that you certainly want to be a part of. And I hope that you will be a part of it. I hope that you will comment, and we'll have a back and forth. I want to read to you what I wrote this morning, and I posted it on Facebook. If you don't know is an anointed word. It is, especially in this case. I posted this on my Facebook. If you're not following me on Facebook, follow me on Facebook, y'all. I want to read this to you because I think this little blurb kind of sets the stage for the conversation that I'm about to have. And then I'm going to bring up our very phenomenal, very capable special guest that's with us this afternoon. But let me read this. I wrote, empire comes, empire consumes, empire contorts, empire crushes. The history of Christianity shows us that in one moment, the faith can stand courageously as a witness against empire, and in the next, be consumed by empire, even advancing its efforts and causes. In the early church, proclaiming Jesus as Lord was not merely a statement of faith. It was a countercultural rejection of the so-called lordship of Caesar. To confess Jesus as Lord instead of Caesar was often met with deadly force. Yet, Christians declared it boldly and unashamedly, even as they were led to slaughter. How could such courage in the face of persecution eventually give way to alignment with and even allegiance to the very empire that once persecuted them. And how has this same pattern appeared within the Black church? In what ways has the Black church shifted from being a faithful prophetic witness against empire to becoming a useful cog in its machinery? So we about to have the conversation, y'all. How do you go from Pharaoh, let my people go, one moment, to Pharaoh, let's make Egypt great again, the next moment? And you're involved in that effort. How? Well, thankfully, I am joined today by y'all. This is a history-making moment because our guest, Sister Rochelle, is the first female guest that we've had on Black's Church Chat. So you are making history, Rochelle. Woo, 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 Now, I'm going to allow Rochelle to introduce herself. However, y'all, she's not here simply because she's female, okay? She's here because she's knowledgeable and she is aware, and she's a jewel that more people need to know within the kingdom. And so, Rochelle, will you introduce yourself to our folks, and then let's have a conversation.
Yes, thank you for that amazing intro. And I'm so much more excited and so much more scared knowing I'm the first. But anyway, let's talk. Yeah, so for me, I started on this journey of apologetics about 20 years ago. I did not grow up in the church, and I had a very close friend that was Muslim. And so I needed to know why I, with my ratchet self, was going to heaven and she was a saint, and why people told me she wasn't. And so after that, it was a series of street evangelism, missions across the world, namely mostly in the Middle East. Lots of evangelism in the Middle East, and then on the streets of New York and New Jersey, and now in Atlanta, where I am, right outside of Atlanta. And I did a little bit online, but I do a lot more work offline. During that time, got a degree in apologetics, best decision I've ever made, a master's in apologetics, and use that a lot, and help churches to build apologetics ministries, which I'm doing right now with 2 different churches. So it's exciting times.
So you hear that, pastors? She can help you to develop an apologetics ministry in your church. She is an amazing resource, so please utilize her. And Joel Smith says, yo, that's my sister. So Joel Smith is like, look, you got the right one today. And we know that we got the right one today. So I guess let me start by asking this question to you, Rochelle. How did this become an area of interest to you? This discussion about like Christianity and its relationship with empire throughout the ages. How did this become something you kind of wanted to lean into?
Yeah. So from the beginning, when I got saved over 20 years ago, I went right into white evangelicalism before I knew what that was. And so all of my experiences throughout that, I've written a ton about it. That taught me about the intersection of religion and power in positive and negative ways. And also, having gone to Biola in California, which I loved, but it was this, it's like the center. It was like at the time, 5, 6 years, 7 years now. It was the center of like what we call white evangelicalism, religious right, apologetics. A lot of what I taught was Eurocentric. And so I had to take the time in my church history classes to find out what else happened and to find other perspectives. And so that really got me kind of interested in what is this path? How did we get here today from this humble beginnings all the way to what we see now that I'm going to talk about, obviously.
Gotcha. So, man, I want to go so many different directions
It's
because
you could go a million directions. I know.
yeah, like we probably have a similar kind of trajectory. Well, I grew up in the black church. I grew up in church, so maybe not, but I at one point I was immersed into white evangelicalism as well. And I did imbibe a lot of the kind of the false narratives and the, the kind of historical revisionism that's prevalent there. At what point in your journey did you like realize, wait a minute, there's a lot of cultural captivity going on here?
Yeah. So, I know a lot of people like, I've seen a lot of people react to people like Jamar Tisby, he and I have kind of, the same type of story. We got caught up in the late 90s, early 2000s, multicultural, mega churches led by the middle-aged white man who's like, I don't see color. I just see the Holy Spirit working over, you know what I mean? And then Trump comes in 2016 and we're like, wait, what's going on? And so I see a lot of people yell at him like, how could you stay in there? How could you know? The fact is that this information comes out in trickles. So for me in my conservative church, the first trickle was when Barack Obama got elected, and it was radio silence. Not a word like, hey, great, this is nothing, like nothing had happened. So it was little things like that. And then I remember we had, I think it was around 2011, and we had back to back to back shootings of young Black males by police officers. Again, radio silence, but then we were having prayer services about sex trafficking with Russian young ladies, Indian young ladies across the world. But we have a congregation that's 60 to 70% Black. And it just felt like the things that were hurting us outside the door didn't matter to our white pastor. And it just was building and building. And then Facebook came out, and we got to see what the deacons and the pastors really think. I got to see what my professors really think on social media, and then of course, 2016, everything blows up.
Jeez. Wow. So I don't know if you know this, but in the coming weeks, I'm doing a broadcast on the Black church in the age of multicultural church planning. And you're getting all into that conversation. And so it's hard for me to kind of pull back.
I know.
That's coming, y'all. That's coming.
Nice.
So I might even have you back. I don't know. We'll see. So, okay. So let's pivot. When we use this word empire, okay, what do we mean? What are we saying?
Yeah, it's like it's we can use that word in different ways. We usually associate it with these large kingdoms like the Babylonian Empire, Egyptian Empire, led by some kind of emperor, and they have dominion over a large swath of land and those people, and they are the de facto gods. But then we have, smaller empires. We have our local, some people go, me and my wife, we're going to build an empire, and they just mean a business and generational wealth. But it's pretty much you are sovereign over something or some people, and you have a lot of influence.
So my brother Robert, by the way, y'all need to follow Robert. Y'all need to follow Rick Barboa. Follow these brothers. Robert says, I had a similar experience with white evangelicals, but it was 20 plus years ago, way before 2016. It's a disgrace before God. Facts. Rick says, empire is an alternative to the words of our house, Jesus is Lord. Yeah. And that's a good segue. So let's talk about empire in the first century. Okay. And let's talk about the, depending on I don't want to get in a debate on like when the church was established. Majority of people would believe that it, Pentecost, Acts 2, but you have some debate there as far as that's concerned. In the first century, what were the dynamics as far as empire is concerned?
So when you say first century, obviously you mean like during the time of the apostles, Jesus and the apostles.
Yes.
Yeah. If I can just pivot for a second.
Mm-hmm.
If I can have about 2 minutes just to set it up before the first
Yes,
century,
please.
just walk
Yes,
us through.
yes.
Because I want to set up what this was supposed to look like.
Okay.
Right. Before we get to, the third and fourth century. So really quickly, I wrote it down so I don't lose my way.
Yeah.
So when I think about empire and I think about where we started, I go back to the book of Exodus, right? And I go back to Moses from the beginning when the people of God come together. And I see that they come into covenant with God as a people and they get the law when right after they come out of slavery from Egypt. And so this kind of sets the tone, like God chooses a people who are ex-slaves. And then he comes to them and he gives them the law. And the first thing he says is, I am your God who brought you out of slavery. And so this is already setting the stage. He didn't go to Pharaoh, he didn't go to the leaders, etc. And so then we see throughout the Old Testament, we see them constantly being subject to different empires, right? And God is sometimes using these empires to humble them, right? But then sometimes they're taking on the personality and the habits, etc., of those powerful empires. And so the first thing that they do after they come out of Egypt, they get the law from God. One of the first things that we see is the book of Judges. And so we see for the first time, or the first major time, that we have an issue with power. So we already know what suffering looks like and what it looks like for God to get us out, to rebel and then repent. But now we have power, and Judges is a moral mess. You need like a NC-17, rating to read that book. It's some real atrocities, right? And then we see we see two things in the book of Judges that's going to become important later on for the Black church. We see that they say that they don't drive the Canaanites out completely, but they adopt their behavior. And then the second thing in the book of Judges we see is everyone did what was right in their own eyes. And that is the human condition. We want to be sovereign, right? And we're going to see that over and over and over again. And then, of course, we move forward in the history and we get to Kings, Samuel, Chronicles, and we know what happens there. King after king after king. It's King Ratchet Jr., King Ratchet the Third, right? And it's like 80% of them are awful. And then and they're doing the same things that they complained about. They're doing the slavery, the corruption, the injustice, etc. So then we have the prophets come, and that's where they're going to articulate what this kingdom is really about. And they're saying, hey, you're not supposed to be like they're yelling at the wealthy. They're speaking truth to power, right? So I'm setting up a model of what this is supposed to look like.
Yes.
Speaking to power, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. We want justice, we want righteousness for the poor. We should not be exploiting them, etc., right? But then they end with truth and hope. They always do truth and hope. And that's another thing that's going to come up down the line. So then we come now to the New Testament, and we have the incarnation, right? So we have the God of the universe, and it's like bet. All throughout the Old Testament, we are subject to these empires. We got our temples being smashed. We have all these things happening to us. We're being enslaved, etc. Now we have Jesus on the scene, right? But look how he comes. So he comes and he's born in the palace, right? Of course not. He's born in the Pharisees' house. No, he's born in a manger. So again, just like the people of God in Exodus, we have humble beginnings. God is talking to people who need him, right? And you're oppressed either in spirit or physically, which they were physically. And so now we have God come, and he becomes immediately a refugee with his parents. And this is because of somebody who's in the powerful empire. But this is our savior.
Yes.
So now we go and he starts his ministry, and what do we get? We get Sermon on the Mount, and we get Beatitudes. And so again, we see what this kingdom is about. It's the poor, the nobodies, the rejects of society, right? And so he's just like, blessed are the poor, the mourning, the meek, hunger and thirst for righteousness, the merciful and the peacemakers. And so what we see is that he's saying that people who need help and then people who should be held. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so we see that this is a kingdom for broken people. It's a spiritual kingdom for broken people and for people who want to serve broken people. But the Jewish leaders are like, no, we don't like this, right? And of course they're persecuting, and they want a military power. This again is going to be important. So they're like, no, not the spiritual stuff. We want to change our reality today. And so how do we see this end up? Do we see Jesus overtake Rome, etc.? Nope. We see him crucified. And that's crazy because it is the most disgraceful death. And people don't understand that today. But to contextualize it, I think it was Pastor Velotis. He said, if you were to think about it today, you wearing a cross is almost like you wearing a chain with an electric chair as a pendant. That's how shameful it is. It was public and it was disgraceful and it was the maximum pain. But this is our savior, right? And so now he goes ahead and he's like, plot twist, resurrection. And he's just like, yeah, that was cute. That was cute what y'all did. But again, he shows himself to be the higher power. Because even with the Old Testament, we see that the empires are subject to the highest power. Again, that's going to be important later on. And so now after that, Jesus is like, okay, I resurrected. Nothing has changed. Rome is still in power, but you need to go and preach the gospel. And so these people need to go ahead. And so we have the Great Commission and it continues on. And then we have the book of Acts where the church is born. Again, still subject to empire. But what are they doing? They're being persecuted and they're preaching the gospel and they're sharing and they're loving and they're doing all these things to the point where now we get to the early church fathers and we have these sayings. I have this one saying from Celsus, who's a Greek philosopher from the mid 200s. And he says, Christians show that they want and are able to convince only the foolish, dishonorable, and stupid, only slaves, women, and little children. And that's how he describes the people of God who are facing persecution like crazy and on and off, but intense when it's on. And this is what he notices. And this is the last time that we're going to see this version of the church, because then we go into the 300s. And I'll stop there.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful summary. Listen, when we talk about biblical theology, y'all just got a quick masterclass in biblical theology, kind of helping you to walk the breadth of the text to see where we are today. Before I ask you my next question, let me give a real quick commercial, y'all. Y'all ready? Y'all know that my new book comes out the 30th of September, y'all. And this time, this one is for the kids. Jamal's Journey to Jubilee. It's a phenomenal book. I'm not just saying that because I wrote it. It is. Pre-order it today. Jamal will help you to understand the beauty and the importance, not just of the church, but the beauty of how Christ has used his church for the good of all people and for his own glory, particularly the Black church. So check this out, y'all. It's a phenomenal book. I guarantee you'll love it. Okay. All right. Now that we're done with that. Okay. So we have Jesus resurrecting, subsequently ascending. We have his disciples proliferating his teaching, people getting saved. We have the Apostle Paul going on missionary journeys. We have people coming to Christ. And we have the church being persecuted. Who's persecuting the church and why?
Right. So this group, as you said, I mean, your intro was just so perfect. As you said, this is an affront to Caesar. So they're saying that Jesus is God, Jesus is their king. And so this is absolutely a threat. And then part of it are the Jews who are coming against them. I mean, the Jews set him up. And so so that's where the persecution is coming from. But just to make a point there, as you mentioned, Paul is one of the most important, figures of the New Testament outside of Jesus, of course. But look at what he did. He started out as someone of privilege, and he gave that up, just like Jesus gave up a whole bunch of privilege. Like God, Son of God, comes down and goes to a manger. We have Paul, who gives up all of this status that he has. I mean, doesn't really have a choice. When Jesus stops you, right? But he goes from persecutor to persecuted. And then we get to a point where he's actually in prison and creating prison epistles. So again, this is like these are the people who are on the bottom. Crucifixion, imprisonment, persecution, nothing is stopping them. So that's what I love about the first century church.
And so what you're saying is that this narrative that like Christianity has always been like the faith of the powerful and the political elites, and Christianity has always been in the seat of the oppressor, and Christianity has always been this ruthless, indifferent faith from its inception. What you're saying is that's cap.
Oh, absolutely, cap. And that's why I like to start with the Old Testament, because it's easy for people to try to distort what happened around 100 AD, 200 AD, 300 AD. Now you're going to have to come with receipts from like 1300 BC. I'll wait.
Yeah. And I mean, so the church, you're absolutely right. I mean, like, I don't understand how, and this is what, to kind of make the connection, this is what our enslaved ancestors didn't understand as well. Like, how can you profess to be a Christian and yet disconnect yourself from who God reveals himself to be in the Pentateuch, right? Like, how can you claim to be serving and worshiping this God who was clearly on the side of the Israelites and the oppressed rather than Pharaoh? God could have shown his support for empire by saying, no, Pharaoh, my hand is upon you. I am using you to do my work. And therefore, however you need to exploit people is what you need to do. And so I'm going to anoint your work, anoint your hand. But that's not what Yahweh does. He stands on the side of the oppressed.
Absolutely.
And so our enslaved ancestors, they were smart enough, astute enough to kind of say, hey, I don't know what y'all believe in, but it can't be Christianity, because the God of this Bible is liberative. He sets the captives free. And so I think that's what you're saying as well, right?
No, absolutely. And the thing is, just as I was saying about my own testimony, about slowly seeing the signs, and a lot of us have the same kind of testimony. It's just like that with the church, which is why I love church history, because you start to see some of these movements towards this. So let me just as you speak on this, let me just go through the next 100 years really quickly. It takes about 10 seconds.
Hold on. Before you go through the next one, and maybe I don't want to step on you. You may say this in what you're about to say, but as the early church was standing against empire, so you probably are going to be saying, okay, so let me shut up. Go for it.
No, go ahead. You could. Is it me frozen, or go ahead? I didn't hear what you just said.
I think it's me. I think it's something on my end with my Wi-Fi here in my office. So while Christianity, while these early Christians like Justin Martyr, like Polycarp, like Felicity and Perpetua, while they are standing against empire, the faith is growing. They're being martyred, but their blood is literally fertilizing the soil.
Woo!
And the church is exploding as it's standing against empire. So now go ahead. You take it from there.
Man, what a baton handoff. And so we catch the notice of, so now we're going to get to the early 300s, which is the 4th century. So they're being persecuted, and it's heating up. And then we get Roman Emperor Galerius. And he recognizes this church isn't going anywhere. And so as he gets to his old age, his deathbed, he's just like, you know what, fine. Let these Christians have their way, but they just should not interrupt with the kingdom. But he kind of acknowledges like, wow, these people have stuck with it no matter what. And they even talk about some of the public persecutions of the Christians, actually showing that some of the pagans at those events turn around and said, you know what, I want to be saved. And then some of the Roman soldiers, like who were like undercut, in the closet Christians, you know, because they didn't want to say anything. But the whole point of what I'm trying to say is that it was compelling. So when when Christianity looks like what we just described for the last several hundred years, or what it's supposed to look like, it's and so we have Galerius, and we have right after that of Sardicus of 311 that stops the persecution. And then we have the next year, Constantine the Great converts. And then after that, right, the next year, we have the Edict of Milan. And for the first time in the church, we have religious freedom. And then we have a few decades later, Theodosius I grants them Christianity as the only legal religion of the empire. And
so let me stop you right there. Just real quick. So do y'all hear that? So this is good apologetics right now, because all Constantine did was he didn't make Christianity the official state religion. He just made it legal. It went from illicit to licit under Constantine. And then Theodosius comes behind Constantine later, and it becomes the official religion of the state. But Constantine didn't do that. And so that's that. Put that in your apologetic back pocket, y'all, as you guys are listening to this, because there's a lot of false narratives about what Constantine did, what he didn't do. He didn't make Christianity the official religion of the state. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, not even close. And so the late 300s, this is what happened. Look what happens. We start to get something called imperial laws. And there's a lot of them. And these are laws where now this new Christian lead, now they're saying things like, if you learn astrology, capital punishment. If you have a gathering of some non-Christian type of faith, capital punishment, taxes, all kinds of things. And I mean, there are at least 50, 60, 70 imperial laws. It almost made me think of like the Jim Crow laws, right? And so immediately, and that shows you what's in our heart. And it goes back to what I was saying with the children of Israel in the Old Testament, where they start to look like their imperial oppressors as soon as they get free. And then they have to go ahead and they have to repent. And then they have to repent. And then they have to go back to the true power over the empires, right? And then guess what? They do it back again. And so then by the 500s, we have popes that have secular power. And this is what happens when you have something like that. When you have a faith where people are being martyred, right, in the public sphere. If somebody like a Roman soldier comes to Christ, you pretty much know it's probably legitimate. But now when the state power is next to Christianity, you don't know who's who. So now we're getting emperors and we're getting popes. Some popes weren't even that Christian. They were just attracted to the power. And that's why one book, this is a total side note, but one book is so good, Narcissism Comes to Church. And it talks about how the position of pastor attracts a lot of narcissists because they like that attention. They like that people, listen to them, et cetera, et cetera. I could go on. But this is what happens when we are in a position of power. So then you get a kingdom full of Christians and ain't nobody saved.
Ooh.
You know what I'm saying? You all right there?
Y'all need to share this. Y'all need to share this because Rochelle is talking that talk right now. Y'all need to share. Keep going.
So then we continue on and we start we start to have the first time we see a real huge problem is with Charlemagne, and he's a military ruler that now becomes, and he has kind of a step over the Pope. And then in 1054 we have what we call the Great Schism between the East and the West. So we start to have these power fights. And so it's the Pope over in France versus the Pope over in Italy versus the Pope over in Portugal. And we start to have these clashes, right? And then of course we have the Martin Luther with the Protestant Reformation, and he's talking about all of these abuses, right? So now these popes, they think they're God. They're like, I can forgive, I can get you out of purgatory. And I'm like, where purgatory come from? And all these different things, right? But then now and I just want to say that I know that there's an Eastern church, I know there's Asia, Latin America, Africa. This is about reverse engineering the American Black church through Western Europe. Yeah. So we're very narrow in this historical discussion. I don't want to do what they did to me in school. And I'm like, wait, what happened to everybody else? Yeah. I understand there's other people. Yes. But anyway, so we ain't talking about Ethiopia today.
Yeah, good disclaimer for the super anal retentive folks.
So. Oh my goodness, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So anyway, so now we have the 1400s, and we have the doctrine of discovery. Doctrine. And this comes from a pope. And so this is now where we're starting to see, now we start to see the track, right? And then they're sending people out and they're saying, we have the right to go and have dominion over non-Christians. How convenient. And this is the issue, because when the state is the source of orthodoxy, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to protect their power, and they're going to protect their desire to go ahead and increase their wealth and increase their influence. And all they have to say is, God told me. That's the original God told me. All these papal decrees that went and terrorized the world. And it's just like, what God told you that? Yeah. And so now we have the slave trade. Go ahead.
Just stop you right there. And this is what I try to hold in front of my MAGA friends when they say, Donald Trump is good for the church.
Father in heaven.
And my question is, which segment?
Lord have mercy.
He ain't good for the Black church because 85% of us disapprove of his job performance. So he's not good for us. He's not good for the historic witness of the Black church, because everything that the Black church has stood for historically, he opposes. So when you say that he's good for the church, what you're really saying is that he's good for white folks, basically. So go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, yeah. So the way that I put it, so the Christianity that we saw pre-300s, instead of saying biblical Christianity, because what these powerful people do is cherry pick the Bible, I call it the Sermon on the Mount type of faith. Yeah, that is the upside down kingdom. And what we see that emerge after we got in bed with power is they tried to turn the kingdom right side up. And so what we have are people who are downstream from this strain of Christianity that says power is the blessing. It's not blessed are the poor, it's blessed are the rich. It's not blessed those who mourn, it's those who can get others to mourn, And so that's where we go from oppressed to overlords. So now we have look at what we have. So now we're in America, and this is during the time of slavery. And there's so many different iterations of what was going on spiritually with slave masters and the enslaved. It's hard to generalize, but generally what we see is there were attempts by some Christian groups, right, to say, hey, we should bring the gospel to the enslaved people. And the slave masters, who half of them weren't saved anyway, right? And they needed missionaries as well. And so they would make these deals and say, you know what, make sure you give them just enough information just to say you got your little, evangelism credit, but they should not think that they will be equal to us, and they should not have any powers, right? And so the thing is, and then we start to see all of these laws, right? We see anti-literacy laws. Now, when you have an anti-literacy law, you are saying that it's more important for me to align with the power, to keep the power structure, than it is for these people to even read the Bible. You know, so now you have already shown what your allegiance is. Your allegiance is to your own personal kingdom or the kingdom of America and not the kingdom of God.
Yep.
And so look at this 180 that happens, because this is what we see today. So when we go back to the New Testament, we see that the people were coming to Jesus and they were saying, okay, you're going to overthrow Rome, right? This is great. And he's like, he's basically selling them on a spiritual kingdom. And now we have people that are saying, no, no, no. Christianity is only spiritual for the enslaved. It's for the next world. So you see a complete twist. So now it's not let's overthrow the system. Let's not overthrow the powers that be, because you are the powers that be. You can't speak power to yourself. And we saw with the history I've gone through for thousands of years, we're really terrible at that.
Yeah.
And so now we start to see all these laws like fugitive slave laws that goes against Deuteronomy 23. You know, all these things that go against the Bible. And of course, we know that there were challenges. There were people, abolitionists, people who didn't agree with it, et cetera, et cetera. But we have the slave church, and they are resilient, and they know the difference. And when you read the slave stories, the stories of the enslaved, and you see that they were like, yeah, that cracker is not going to join me in heaven. We know none of these people going to. They know. You know what I'm saying? They absolutely know. And I think the saddest thing is this well-known fact that, you know, that the enslaved would say, we would rather a slave master that's not saved, because the ones that go to church are the worst.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so what a testimony, what a twist, where we see hundreds of years ago, we would see emperors that were like, wow. I mean, nobody questions why Constantine would look at this group and be like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he was very astute politically. He didn't need to just, you know, become a Christian, but he did, because that was the last time we were ever so compelling, right? Besides from the remnant, because I know there's always a remnant that marched through.
Absolutely.
And so we had the slave church, and then we march through Reconstruction. Your audience knows about the Black church, but now we start to get to the cracks in the Black church. And I don't know if you want to stop me.
So let me just stop you right there. By the way, y'all need to share this. Rochelle is in her bag, and we are being enlightened. We are learning. The synapses in my brain are firing, and yours should be too. This discussion is excellent, and you should share it. But notice the parallels, guys. So early Christians, persecuted, forced to worship in the catacombs, literally in the graveyards. There's an invisible institution, the church in the shadows, the church in the catacombs. Well, how did the Black church in America emerge? In the shadows. Maybe not in the catacombs, but in the hush harbors. So you see the parallels.
Yes.
You see how the Black church in America mirrored the journey of the early church. And in a lot of ways, the Black church in America also served as the conscience of the country. And so now let's talk about it. Now let's talk about some of the when we start seeing some of the foundation collapse here. Let's talk about it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So as we get into, you know, the civil rights era, right? We're still unified because, you know, we have a centralized goal. We've had a centralized goal. It was freedom, equality, voting rights, right? But within the church, we already have an issue. We have an issue that it's deeply patriarchal, right? And we see women, and this is beyond the spiritual, because of course, like you know, we got to do the disclaimers for people who want to jump into the comments or whatever. I am totally all about the male headship of the church, male headship of the marriage, submission, all that. Okay, check. Now we're talking about straight up like misogyny or you know, patriarchy, etc. And then of course, you know, we have colorism, and we soon start to have this division between middle class, working class, low income. So as middle class black folk get opportunities to move northwest, then they go, we don't want those people coming with us. You know what I mean? And so we start to get these divisions and these social hierarchies. And again, like I keep repeating, that's when you start to copy the oppressor.
Yeah.
And then and in that way you start to participate in your own oppression, because now you're breaking apart, and
Yes.
so we start to see those things. And then after the Voting Rights Act, right, we no longer have a centralized goal. And we're decentralized in our desires and in our needs. And then we have some devastating things. We have Vietnam, people coming home addicted to drugs. We have mass incarceration. I'm all about mass incarceration.
Yes.
I worked in that field a long time, and this destroys neighborhoods. But the way we reacted is not good. It's pretty poor, because look at some of the things culturally that came out of it. We had pimps who are sexually exploiting women. We have drug dealers, and these guys are heroes in the community.
Yes.
And so now they are destroying their own communities, but they get to be, and they have their own kingdoms and they have their own territories, right? We have gangs where you're getting power based on violence against your own people. We have rap music, and it's all about, it becomes about violence, and it becomes about sexually exploiting someone. And it's like, I'm a do this, I'm a smash, I'm a hit, I'm a blah, blah, blah. And then I'm not going to call. And so it's just this sense of getting power. And I'm not criticizing, but I'm just, observing. And of course, women are not off the hook. We have womanist theology, feminism. We have the Beyoncés. Now we have the Meg Thee Stallions, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have goddesses, and back in Africa. And then even in the prison, we're getting attacked by the enemy. Guess what? Islam is spreading like wildfire, because men want to feel powerful, right? They're like, forget this turn the other cheek business. We're not getting any legislation. You know what I mean? And so now it becomes like, what was the goal? Was the goal ever Jesus? Was the goal ever God's kingdom, or was it our kingdom? And so then we have to grapple with that, right? And so now we, of course, we come to today. And then in the church, we even had issues where some people said, I'm not going to leave the church, but I'm going to declare and decree. And we have a move towards prosperity gospel. You are God. Straight up. You're going to declare and decree that you are in power. That's not an upside down kingdom kind of posture. And then people who say, you know what, I'm going to become the pastor. Like, I know my friend, she's in Nigeria, and she's just like, you could go to one block and find a way to make money is to become a pastor. And you're just like, it used to be, I'd rather have Jesus than silver and gold. And they're like, no, I want my G7. I want my jet. You know what I mean? Like, you could have your Jesus. And now today, TikTok, forget it. We have young Black men and women who are deconstructing, and they're building whole platforms on trashing the church and trashing us stupid, naive, Black Christians who are aligning with the system. And that's why I'm like, we need to go back. You know what I mean? And so like we have a lot to deal with. And so finally, what I'm trying to say is, as a people of God, and even as Black people of God, I think we sort of have a theology of suffering, but we need a theology of power as well. We need a balance, and we need to go back to the basics of what is this really, which is why I love what Pastor Mason is doing with Remnant, and just giving, just the foundational teachings, what is eschatology, Christology, bibliology, all these different things. So we can know what exactly we're talking about when we say Christianity, because I just went through 2,000 years of history that has meant so many different things. You know what I'm saying? And I'll just stop there.
And wow, this is so good. Such a good conversation. I want to back up the bus just a little bit. There's one of my favorite books. Let me find it. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is. So I just want to back up the bus just a little bit because I think this is insightful. This is one of my favorite books. It's called Black Religion and Black Radicalism by Guy Rod Wilmore. And he says a lot in this book, but he argued that Black religion became a lot less radical and a lot more aligned with empire after the death of this man here. So this man here is Bishop Henry McNeil Turner. And Bishop Henry McNeil Turner was a Pan-Africanist. He was a minister in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. So he was a strong, staunch believer in Christ. He also held office in the state of Georgia for a little while. He was a fierce abolitionist. And he actually developed the idea of God being black before James Cone. So, of course, he didn't believe that God was ontologically black, but in terms of who he identified with and in terms of, you know, how God went about interacting with his creation, right? That's what Henry McNeil Turner meant by God is black. And Turner declared that actually at a meeting of Baptists in 1895 is where he presented that notion. So Guy Rod Wilmore comes along and says Black radicalism died with the death of Bishop Henry McNeil Turner. And one of the reasons why he says that is because Henry McNeil Turner dies, and who becomes more influential? Oh gosh, why can't I think of his name right now? He was he sparred with W.E.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington. Okay, so Booker T. Washington ascends as and you know, Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois, they were at odds because Booker T. Washington believed in like a lot of respectability things. Listen, black folks, stay quiet, learn a trade, work with your hands, and then maybe white folks will accept us. Maybe finally, right, they'll recognize that we're human and they will give us the rights due to us, right? And so Guy Rod Wilmore says that's the death of Black radicalism, because at the root of that is a desire to be accepted by the majority culture. At the root of that is, how can we get these people to see us? And here's the prescription. Don't worry about advocating and fighting for justice. Don't worry about waving the flag. No, learn a trade. Be quiet. Live within the structures and the systems that exist in that day. Keep your head down, right? And at the root of that is acceptance. And I think that that's when your desire is to be accepted by those in power and to be acknowledged as legitimate by those in power, you're well on your way to aligning with empire, because you will walk away from your prophetic role. You will walk away from your role as society's conscience when your goal is to ingratiate yourself with society. And so what do you because like we're just talking, what do you think about that? What do you think about Wilmore's analysis?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts. I'm about to burst. So first of all, I'm going to go back to the Bible. That's like saying like the Israelites, when they were enslaved, should have sought Pharaoh instead of God. So the question is, who has the power? And that's why I like to always mention all of the empires, Babylonian, Assyrian, Persian, etc., right? they're always subject to the Lord. That's why I said that's going to come up later, because that is the true power, right? And the thing is, another thing I would say is, why can't it be and or? You know, we don't have to be straight up ignorant just because we are oppressed, right? Because when you go back to when the children of Israel were given the law, he said, I'm the God that brought you out of Israel. And then he goes right into the 10 commandments. And he's like, so here's the rules. He didn't say, you poor people, you were just out of slavery. Take a few centuries off, do what you do, have a few drinks. He didn't say that. He still said, you have a responsibility, even if you were oppressed. So yeah, we can behave and do all those other things, but then also, we also have there's a kingdom that needs us to be prophetic. I think about when I talked about the black church, some of the people stayed in the church and did prosperity gospel. The other side is some of the people stayed in and said, I'm gonna align with power, and became black conservatives. I have zero problem with black conservatives. I am theologically conservative, right? And there's certain things socially I'm conservative. I'm not politically conservative, right? But the thing is, it's like, when you see those people turn around and criticize the black church for the same things that they stay quiet about, what most of their audience would have a problem with if they address it. That's the problem with that kind of thinking. Is when you say we should be nice to them, that means that we should ignore your sin. We should ignore the ways in which the way you behave and the way that you're preaching veers from the true spirit of this Jesus movement. Then we will be silent. Then you don't have a prophetic voice because you don't want to be Lecrae. You don't want to have all the people unsubscribe from your channel. This is why I got so many invitations for people like to be on their channel when I was coming out of seminary. And I was just like, you must have never seen anything that I wrote. Like, people that would ask me, like, I was like, you haven't seen what I wrote. You haven't seen my tweets. Because if you knew, because I would never set myself up like that. Because I'm like, you're going to have one conversation with me and half the people are going to be angry with you and 100% are going to just, unfollow me. So I'm like, nah, I'm good. I can't be beholden to that. You know what I mean? Because I have to have a prophetic voice. So when you do that, you lose it, because then you have something to lose and you don't want to lose that. You know what I mean? No judgment, but it's just an observation.
Yeah. And so I'm letting you into my private thoughts, right? The other night,
thank you.
The other night I watched the movie Django for like the millionth time. Right? I've seen that movie. I love that movie.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm sitting there watching Django, and I'm kind of in my mind going through like a social critique. And like, of course, we know that the character of Steven was just wrong. Like Steven, he was have you seen Django?
I have not.
Oh, snap. Okay. Then you know what? I'm going to, because I don't want to spoil it. Go back and watch Django. So you haven't seen it, so I don't want to spoil it. But for those of you guys listening to me that have seen Django, so I'm not going to give anything away. But you have a character named Steven, who's basically the house N-word. Okay, he's in love with his massa. Okay, and then you have Django, who is the ex-enslaved man who has a vendetta, who essentially believes in liberation at any cost. Okay. And like, you root for Django throughout the movie, but as I'm sitting back watching the movie, doing this like critique in my mind and thinking about the black church, right? I say to myself, we can't go either direction. Right. So of course we don't want to be Steven, because that's aligning with empire, that is completely capitulating to whiteness, white supremacy, cultural captivity, and sort of giving your soul over to white supremacy. So we can't go that direction. But as much as we love Django and want to root for Django, we can't go that direction either.
Right.
Because it can't be like liberation at all costs.
Right.
Where all of a sudden now we're devaluing the Imago Dei in others. And you brought something up that I think is so apropos, because this is why I can't go Cone's direction 100%.
Right.
Because the reason why I can't go Cone's direction 100% is because if you have an idea of liberation without a biblical soteriology and a biblical eschatology, then essentially you're going to, if you achieve your ends and people are liberated, then those who are liberated will just become the oppressors.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So
we haven't gotten to the harder problem.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So go ahead. We just talking. Go ahead.
No, yeah, you are so right. And I think it's interesting because I started to really focus on this issue about a year ago, and I started reading up a lot on it. But right now it's so important. It's the essential question. We have to have these discussions, like, how do we now move forward in this age where we're seeing a blatant naked abuse of power, right? Like, what do we do when there are tanks going into Chicago and save our witness? What do we do? We need to be having these discussions, and then at the same time talking about how we missed it in our own communities. These things were happening. Like, we have passport bros. You know what passport bros are?
I don't.
Oh my God. It's a whole movement of all these. It's all races, but I'm gonna talk about black guys, right? And pick on black guys. And they go to places like Colombia, Medellin, Thailand, all these places, and it's sex tourism, right? And then they get on the internet as if these places don't have Wi-Fi. And they speak on YouTube, and they're just like, yeah, so these girls, you go to this place, you can pay $20, and it's all about getting a woman who is not going to talk back. They're like, these women don't have Western values yet. And they're saying this, and these channels have millions of followers, thousands and thousands and thousands of comments. And I'm just like, how is this not sexual colonization? Wow. You're the same one that's going to come to me as an apologist and talk about white man religion. And this is what you do. You're the same as them. And so when we talk about this, like, even when somebody says white man religion and we go right into the truth and we talk about the blackness of Christianity, we have to also talk about the root in their heart. Like, forget about the race part. What if all of them were black? Would you sign up to a Sermon on the Mount faith? That's the real crux of the issue. Because if not, then me telling you about Ethiopia is just going to fall on deaf ears, because I'm not trying to build you up to say, well, Christianity is actually a black kingdom. And then when I meet an Asian person, well, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, one of the apostles was Vietnamese. That's not what this is about. You know what I mean? It's really about a different goal. It's not for us to see, it's the truth. We tell it because it's the truth, but it's not because we need to see us in power to join this faith. This faith is for the slaves, the poor people, the worthless. You know what I mean? Except for the value that we have from Christ, right? So, like, I don't know. We got a lot of talking. We have a lot of talking.
Man, I'm saying, this has been phenomenal. And y'all, listen, if you haven't shared the broadcast, it's not too late. Your network can catch, the replay. They can come in and they can get in where they fit in. I'm seeing these. Let's interact with some of these comments. So Carter C. Goodson, Garvey came to America because of his reverence for Booker T, but Booker died by the time he got here. Du Bois opposed Garvey's self-determination message too. Yeah. So I just want to let everybody know that I'm not saying that I agree with Wilmore's characterization of. I think Booker T. Washington was a more complex figure than I think Wilmore and others give him credit for, because some people see Booker T. Washington as like a 100% sellout, simply a coon. I don't see him as that. I think he was a far more complex figure. I think he certainly should be celebrated as a beneficial historical figure for Black folks. And there's like truth be told, W.B. Du Bois had some problematic views and perspectives as well. And so I do want to say that I was just kind of bringing up Wilmore's view and using that as kind of fodder for conversation. So did you have any thoughts about what Carter C. Goodson said, my brother?
No, that's your area. No.
Okay. Let's see. Our sister, Melody's child and key. This is why the church has been infiltrated, watered down, even by the government from within. What do you have any thoughts on that? She's probably, I think she's responding to something.
Yeah. This is why the church has been infiltrated, watered down, even by the government from within. I mean, I think it's. I don't know what she's responding to, but I think it just goes along with the gist of what we're saying, that things get complicated. It's and I want to point out that it's not necessarily wrong when Christians are in power. It's kind of what happens when the goal becomes preserving that power or expanding God's kingdom. That's where we start to have a clash. You know, we've seen leaders in the Old Testament, you know, kind of battle with what to do. We saw with David when he was the most humble. He was a man after God's own heart. That's the side of him. But then other times when it all crumbled, that's where we get his sons and all of the all of the drama. So we've seen where it looks good, but yeah. So I think partially we agree.
Yeah, and I think like, so I often hold on, let me hide that comment. So I often say this, that like, even because you brought up David, and I think a good sort of image for us to kind of consider is Nathan's confrontation of David the king. Right? So David is the reigning king, and I think this is before Northern and Southern Kingdom split, right? Don't quote me on, but I think it's before Northern and Southern Kingdom split. Y'all let me know in the comments. I could be wrong, but I think it's before Northern and Southern Kingdom split. But however, he's the reigning and ruling king either way. And Nathan the prophet could care less. He has a message to deliver, and he could be killed for delivering that message.
Right.
But he's more focused on truth and justice than he is aligning with the king and being in the king's good graces. And I think that's a good image for us to consider. It is our faith and our faith tradition is exemplified more of like a Nathan, character of Nathan, or are we applauding David and using the Bible to somehow prop up David and prop up David's actions? And I mean, I think the parallels are so crystal clear for today with the current president. Like I think that, like, how can you be, I don't know, I want to be charitable. Let me be charitable. I don't understand how you can be an enthusiastic supporter.
Right.
Of Donald Trump.
Right.
Okay, so let me be charitable. Maybe there's somebody out there that's like, I don't enthusiastically support him. He's just a lesser of two evils. I vehemently disagree, but okay, I want to be charitable for that person. But these evangelicals that are like, yeah, Trump, that's God's man. I don't see, like, help me. Am I out to lunch? I mean, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it.
I mean, you know, having been in that, I mean, when I say I was in the white evangelical space, I mean, I was working for white evangelical firms, getting my degree, and in a church all at the same time, 20 years. So I've seen a lot. And one of the things I can say is, like, you know, it's kind of like interviewing a fish and saying, how does water feel? You know, there's so much that they are not told. There's so much that they're not told. Like, I have a book in one of these many books, and it's called Teaching White Supremacy. And when you see some of the things that are included in the textbooks that these kids get, and then when you talk about homeschooling, forget about it. And then even I experienced it to some extent when I saw when I got my church history books. The first thing I did was go to the index and look up slavery. And it would be like a 500-page book, and it would be like 3 pages.
Wow. And
even when that one page where they actually said slavery more than once, they made it like a distant person. They said, slavery discouraged the Black people. Slavery caused them to reach out to their God and not the African gods. So right in that kind of sentence, they're implicitly saying slavery was good because it brought them Christianity, but then also out the accountability of the people who were whipping them on their backs. And of course, there were no details about how horrible it was. And so, you know, that's where, when we talk about praying for compassion, that's where I don't really have as much of an issue with, when I think of certain people that I know who are good-hearted people, but they literally do not know the details. They were not told. They were, you know what I mean? Now it's different. Everybody knows everything, right? Like, you choose to be ignorant if you want to be now. But back then, you know, I was just like, yeah, there's certain things that they were taught and the ways they were taught, and I experienced that in some respects at seminary. And I was like, how can you read a whole 500-page book, including 200 pages of American church history, and you got 3 pages on slavery? They're not telling the story. They're just not. And it's because they're telling it in a way that they want to preserve their goodness, their power, their influence. And it's maddening.
My. Listen, we're about an hour and 18 minutes in, and I can be on for another 2 hours. This has been an intriguing conversation. Just to piggyback off of what you said, Black church, you know that I've been encouraging you, Black pastors, I've been encouraging you to ensure that your church becomes a guardian of our history. All right. We are currently living through an administration that is hostile to the Black church and Black church history and Black history, period. And so the president may be able to eradicate Black history out of the museums in DC, but he can't in the Black church. And so we need to become the repository of the repositories of history and legacy and witness. And so I want to take the opportunity to just say that. Rochelle, girl, you on fire. Where can people find you?
Well, I mean, I've been saying this for years. I have to start my YouTube this year, but you know, when Lord willing, I do, the first place you'll probably hear about it is on Instagram. I think that's the best place to follow me. And my blog that I will start one of these years again, probably the 2 best places. And they're both Apologetics in the City.
Apologetics in the City. You guys need to follow Rochelle on Instagram, Apologetics in the City. Go to her blog. And Rochelle, we need your podcast. Like,
thank you.
We need you to do that. Like ASAP. Okay.
Thank you.
Listen, I know you guys have a lot of comments out there. We just don't have time to go over all the comments. Super chat is a good idea next time. Super chat. All right. Super chat is a good idea for next time. But I appreciate all y'all. Y'all know that you guys, this community, it's so life-giving for me. And I appreciate y'all so much. Rochelle, do you have any last words?
Yeah, so you know, like I said, I think going forward, for the leaders and the small group leaders and stuff like that, we need to really start talking about getting back to the basics of the Bible. We need to talk about our theology of suffering and our theology of power. But also, I want to say, even with this Trump thing, no matter where it goes, we should not panic, because we are people with a hope. And we have good news. And that news has always been good. It always will be good until he returns.
Y'all hear that? Hope, good news. And I got some more good news. Phil Fox, my friend, my brother from the land of the Potawatomi and the Anishinaabe, just left a $20 super chat.
Woo!
So shout out. We love you too. We love you too. And I know you're still smarting after your Dolphins.
Oh, God.
Got that L. Phil, I'm praying for you. And you too, Rochelle. Rochelle,
whatever.
Rochelle, it is not too late to repent of your Cowboys fandom. All right. You are solid in every area, but for whatever reason, you're heretical in this one. Repent and trust Jesus, okay? And let him deliver you. Somebody else asked let's see. Hold on real quick, because I saw my brother learn as I go apologetics. He asked, where is it at? How do I offer a super chat? So in chat, you will see, it looks like a target. If you're on your device, there's going to be a target, and it's going to say 0/5, actually 1/5. You press that little button where that target is, and that should allow you to send a super chat. If I'm not mistaken, I've never sent a super chat myself, but I think you can send a super chat that way. All right. Okay. All right. Rochelle, you have been excellent, and you're gonna be back. But you have made history. You are the first female guest, and you have been amazing, and I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah. Listen, everybody, pre-order the book, Jamal's Journey to Jubilee. You did? Did you pre-order?
Rochelle? I sure did.
Okay. All right. So listen, I'm expecting, because you reviewed. I think you definitely reviewed my first book. Not sure about my second, but I'm going to need your review on this book. Okay. And I know you're going to be honest with your review, but like, I don't want to toot my own horn. Lord knows that I'm a humble man, but I was in my bag. All right.
Okay.
While I was writing this book, I was in my bag. And
I believe you.
Yeah. So y'all go pre-order that book. It's going to be a blessing. But anyway, y'all stick around. Look at the broadcast that we have coming up. We have some amazing broadcasts coming up, so you don't want to miss it. Subscribe to the channel, and you'll be blessed. Rochelle, thank you again. You're going to be hearing from me soon, okay?
Sure thing.
All right, family. Black Church Chats. We love you so much. See y'all later. Bye.